Welcome to the Civic Tech Innovation Network's Regional Ambassadors Masterclass and Workshop series. It's very nice to have these spaces where we can learn from our partners in West Africa. And today we will be looking at elections and AI as a topic. And our guests are both from CC Hub in Nigeria, and the technology and society practice at CC have contributed to good governance by accelerating application of innovation technology to bridge the gap between its citizens through civic technology platform, especially the GoVote platform, which is a civic education platform that simplifies the voting and governance processes in Nigeria and serves as an information point to different categories and voters. And so today we have two special guests and speakers from CC Hub. We have Oluwaseun Adepoju, and we have our regional ambassador from West Africa, who also works at CC Hub, who is the project coordinator for GoVote, Yvonne Eweka. And today we will be looking at a topic about how do we navigate the influences of AI and misinformation on the African electoral landscape, and especially in 2024, which has been dubbed the year of elections, and where about more than 60 countries will be voting or who have already voted. For us in South Africa, we voted yesterday, and I think the process was a bit uneven. Some stations, there were people waiting a long time, and some places it went very smoothly. And in the current digital era we're all living in, there's a lot of misinformation that citizens and other sectors of society have to navigate when it comes to election and information, and access to information and the validity of that information. Maybe I could just touch briefly on the purpose of our workshop and masterclass series. We wanted to create a space where our regional ambassadors could platform some of the work that they're doing, and in the context of some of the debates and discussions that are happening globally and on the African continent. So we had quite a successful Civic Tech Innovation Forum last year, which we had all 5 regional ambassadors participate in the program. And so we thought this could be a wonderful extension of that participation at the forum. So these workshops are an attempt to collaborate and educate our network and other members on civic tech and some of the conversations that are taking place on the continent. So I'd like to welcome both Oluwaseun and Yvonne, and they will, I think I'm handing over to Oluwaseun to start with the artificial intelligence discussion, and thereafter we will hear from Yvonne on the misinformation and disinformation on the elections. Thank you so much for being here, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you so much for setting the mood for the masterclass. Good morning, everyone, and it's great to be here. The topic of conversation today is very dear to our hearts and is at the center of the work that we do. And as she has said, this year has been dubbed the year of elections, and a lot of technologies are going to be deployed in elections, both on the positive and negative side. And it's important as professionals working in digital accountability for social sector issues and cases should be aware of the different intricacies that is involved with artificial intelligence, especially as one of the technologies that is disrupting that space. So today we are going to talk about how to navigate the electoral landscape, specifically for Africa, looking at artificial intelligence. And it will be good to start this masterclass today to I'll give a little bit of definition to artificial intelligence, because wherever we turn to now, artificial intelligence is in conversations everywhere. Of work for elections, as we have come today, for education, for healthcare, across all the sectors. It seems artificial intelligence is one of the most talked about technology at the moment. And it's very important that we understand it's not a new thing. Initially named artificial intelligence at the Dartmouth conference in 1956. Study. So when we talk about AI, it's a field of study. Intelligent machines itself that learn from the data that will feed into it. Right? So you must have heard about machine learning, and it is the machine that learns from data within the artificial intelligence field itself. So just to clarify, that machine learning is the engine that learns from data that we eventually call artificial intelligence. It's like you saying humans are learning from a particular textbook, or humans are learning from a particular source of knowledge. The same thing in the field of artificial intelligence. Machine learning is that branch of AI that creates intelligent machines or systems that learns from the data. So it's like an information assimilation kind of process within the AI system. Then we have deep learning, right? Deep learning is a subset of machine learning methods based on artificial neural networks, right? The artificial intelligence field itself rides on a network of data, networks of intelligence that makes you say an artificial intelligence system is effective, or it's reducing time for a process, or it's making a process more more efficient or more effective, or it's making our work better, or it's reducing time of a repetitive task. What is responsible for that is deep learning. It's like you saying humans human beings have gone through a deep, maybe workshop session to provide solution to a particular thing, right? So the subset of machine learning that does that is called deep learning. And it is, that subset of machine learning that helps us to tap into different networks of information, different sources of data, to be able to come out with an effective, efficient, time-saving, but also a kind of artificial intelligence that reduces repetitions, right? And then the one that is very common that all of us, we are currently using is generative AI. And the type of that is ChatGPT that we all use today. And it's a type of the artificial neural network that generate data that is similar to the data it was trained on. So whatever you feed into generative AI is what it makes use of to give you an answer or to give you a response, right? So the data or the insight or the responses that you get from generative AI like ChatGPT is as a result of what was fed into it. What is given out to you is a replica or a modification or optimization of the types of data that was fed into it, right? And I believe this foundational knowledge is important for us to know the differences or the different unique domains within artificial intelligence. And I hope this really helps. When you talk about artificial intelligence, it is a field of study, and the things that actually contribute to you talking about artificial intelligence are machine learning, deep learning, and generative artificial intelligence. And it will be good for us to also look at what AI is and what AI is not. Because like I said, it's in conversations everywhere. There's going to be a lot of hype conversations around artificial intelligence. There's also going to be a lot of misleading information around artificial intelligence. But as professionals, we must understand what AI is and what AI is not. So in terms of what AI is, artificial intelligence is a tool for automation. It can automate repetitive and mundane tasks, increasing efficiency and freeing up human resources for more complex work. And we have started seeing that across different work domains globally. So it helps us with automation and reduces repetitive and mundane tasks, right? It can help us automate things in such a way that things we usually do for 5 hours can be done in less than 5 to 10 minutes, and then it remains the humans to put the resources together. So it is a tool for automation. Let us have that in mind. Artificial intelligence is data-driven. We more than a decade ago, we started talking about the fact that data is the new oil, right? And what we mean by that is that for example, for a vehicle or a machine to move, it needs fuel to operate. But in the modern era, that is based on artificial intelligence, data is the oil that runs that system. So whatever you want to do with the artificial intelligence system, writes on data. Because when we talk about intelligence, learning is involved and optimization is involved, right? So for AI to do any work, it has to learn from a large data set, and it has to optimize that data set for us to get the type of response or the type of outcome that we want from artificial intelligence systems. So it is a tool for automation, and it is data-driven. And not just small data, big data, because it takes learning from different set of data, aggregate it, learn from it, and optimize it for the kind of outcome and the output that we're looking for. And it is capable of learning, right? You can't talk about intelligence without learning. As human being, when we say you're a very intelligent person, what we are trying to say is that you are given to learning and you know how to optimize what you are learning to create knowledge, right? So artificial intelligence is capable of learning through the machine learning and deep neural network subset of it that I just showed us on the first slide. So through machine learning techniques, AI system can learn from data. They can identify patterns and make decisions with minimal human intervention. And that's why we call it artificial intelligence, because it has the capacity of learning by itself based on all the types of information and data that we have fed into the algorithm and the model. And it is widely applicable. Since we're talking about intelligence, we have pushed the society forward to this point because of human intelligence across all sectors. And artificial intelligence system has that same opportunity and capabilities to be applied very widely across different domains of knowledge, societal spectrums of operations, and also in all types of tasks and services in the society. And you can see repetitively how AI is being used in healthcare and telemedicine on, even predicting what symptoms you have based on the information that is available to it. AI is used in transportation. You can, in most cities in Africa and globally, you can use artificial intelligence system through traffic cameras to know the number of cars passing, the types of cars passing per hour, and the number of people, pedestrians, walking on a particular road. And with facial recognition input, it can actually do that work in transportation. Customer service as well. Artificial intelligence can be used to design reward system or customer loyalty systems in trade or in businesses as well, based on buying behavior. And it helps us just do a tailor-made customer loyalty system for customers, which is amazing. And that is why it is good to have a balanced conversation on what it can do, what it cannot do, what it is, and what it is not. And lastly, it is constantly evolving. Especially in the domain of generative AI, you can see how we have moved from GPT 3.5 to GPT-4 and now to GPT 4.0, right? And it's an evolution that is building upon what the previous one was doing. And we can see a lot of release of different large language models like Llama, that are doing what we believe was not possible 10 years ago. So it is constantly evolving and is moving at a very geometric pace. And that tells us that we must be conscious of how to live a very relevant and adaptable life in the era of fastly evolving artificial intelligence. So what AI is for automation. It's data-driven. It is capable of learning. It is widely applicable and is constantly evolving. Then what AI is not? AI is not sentient. What do I mean by that? AI lacks consciousness. And this tells you the limitation of AI. It lacks consciousness. It's not human. Artificial intelligence does not have DNA and hormones, right? So which means it lacks consciousness. It lacks emotions and it lacks self-awareness. It's strictly machine and data-driven. It does not understand or experience the world as humans do. And as a matter of fact, it is what humans feed into it that makes it operate. So at the end of the day, we should not rely on AI as if the intelligence of AI has context or it has emotions to feel what we are feeling. Artificial intelligence does not feel. It only learns by the data that you feed into it. And the manipulative nature of AI is through your own skills of probing it, your own skills of information retrieval. So we should not have that confidence to the point where we believe in AI, to the point where we believe it has experiences, it can feel, or it can relate with one emotion that you expect it to have. No, it doesn't work like that. Artificial intelligence is not perfect, right? As humans, we are not perfect. And for a system that humans built, we don't expect it to also be perfect, right? AI system can make mistakes, and that is why it is always consistently learning, and the model is consistently being worked on. And they are only as good as the data and algorithm they are built upon. They can also they have inherent biases that is present in the training of the data. So AI has biases. And I usually say a technology will always will always reflect the complexion of the people that built the technology, right? A technology will always reflect the biases of those who built the technology. So, for example, if an AI system is built in Africa, if we are not careful, when people with different context, people with different skin color, people with different understanding want to use that system, our system might be biased towards them because we did not build it with the context of other languages, other skin color, other understanding with it. And it is what it is with technology generally. So a technology will always reflect the bias of the people that built it. So AI systems have the high tendency to be biased, and we can go on and on to cite example of AI system biasness across different domains. And also, artificial intelligence is not a replacement for human creativity, not at all. While AI can generate creative output, it does not possess genuine creativity or original thoughts like humans. An AI system will never be able to think like humans. It can go to an extent of making human ideas better or even fleshing it out and making it applicable in different domains, but you cannot compare the intelligence of artificial intelligence to human intelligence. I think it's important that we acknowledge that. And artificial intelligence is not ethically neutral. The use of AI raises ethical concerns, which I'm going to speak about in the domain of elections shortly, including privacy issues, job replacement. So it is not ethically neutral. It has ethical issues that we must continue to talk about and engage with so that we can have that corporate intelligence of co-creating the kind of future and the ethical standards that we want with artificial intelligence. And also, artificial intelligence is not self-sufficient. No, it is not self-sufficient. It is being managed by humans. It has the ability of learning for that, but humans are still behind it, right? So AI systems require significant human oversight, maintenance, inputs to function effectively and ethically. So it is not self-sufficient. It is not a messiah for task or information system. It is still limited and it's not self-sufficient. But also, like we said, it is that point, that number 6 is not supposed to be there. It's supposed to be on the previous slide. So the 5, what AI is not, is it's sentient. It's sentient, it's not perfect. And it is not a replacement of human creativity. It is not ethically neutral, and it is not self-sufficient. So we should talk about AI governance in Africa. There has been a lot of conversations and initiatives recently on how to manage artificial intelligence in Africa for our own benefit, for our own safety, and for our own good as the continent. So I have highlighted 4 things here. Number 1, the African Union recently has come out with the African Continental AI Strategy, which is an initial work as well. It is not final. It is the kind of work that will still evolve. But the highlight of that strategy is to look at how African Union hope to address limited use of African data and algorithmic bias, and emphasizing cultural values and human rights in AI. Because let me say we're a fast follower with artificial intelligence. The continent, as the African Union has been looking at how we can advocate for more inclusion of African data in large language models, and also how to address the algorithmic biases that this lack of data, lack of African data, is causing for for artificial intelligence. If you probe some of the generative AIs that we have currently, you will see that many of them are still very deficient in African data and context. And it is our work to advocate for a way for African data to be well ingrained and included in some of these systems. It is also our responsibility to know the kind of data that we release for feeding and feeding this model and training these models. So the African Union has taken a step to address this early issue around the lack of Africanization in large language models, and how this leads to algorithmic biases, especially for facial recognitions, for language issues in artificial intelligence. But also, there have been a lot of national AI strategies across different countries in Africa. So we've seen an increase in the number of national AI policies promoting coherence and innovation across countries. For example, Nigeria has come up with their own initial, national AI policy and charter, which is running on a collective of industry, government, and the academia. And also we've seen some, thoughts coming out of Kenya on national AI strategies. But also Rwanda, at the beginning of this year, released the first draft of their national AI strategy. And some of these strategies are early thoughts that the countries plan to be building on. So it's important that we've started seeing some AI governance conversation going on. And then we've also had a lot of things coming out on data protection laws. And a lot of countries in Africa have started taking data protection very seriously. So for example, a number of countries in Africa, they've started giving data controller and data processing, licenses to organizations that process data, to be sure of the type of data that organizations are processing, types of data they collect, and the types of data they sit on, so that we can harness the power of data, but also ethically harness the power of data for artificial intelligence. And then global participation. I believe artificial intelligence is one of those technologies where Africa is playing strongly. So we've seen increased African involvement in international AI governance forums. And this is the kind of work that we are also doing as organizations on this call today. So the quote here from MIT Technology Review showed that some African countries have already begun to formulate their own legal policy framework for AI, which is impressive. And we believe in the next decade, we're going to see a geometric increase in that. And I think artificial intelligence is a technology that is making more countries responsible and also bringing up regulations and policies for ethical use of data for artificial intelligence. So in terms of digital rights and artificial intelligence, There are a number of concerns that we need to talk about in terms of digital rights and AI. Number one is data privacy and protection. The lack of robust data protection laws, uneven enforcement across countries is a concern. And the truth is that if a country is doing it and another country that is a neighboring country is not doing it, we are not complete yet in that value chain of data privacy and protection. So we still have an uneven situation of data privacy and protection when it comes to digital rights and artificial intelligence. And if we are not doing this work, artificial intelligence will just exacerbate this situation further, right? And then there's a case of bias and fairness. Algorithmic biases can increase social inequalities. And it happens across different domains, including elections, if we don't address the issue of biases and fairness with artificial intelligence. Then access and inclusion as well. Digital divide and unequal access to AI technologies. It is unfair for a region to have all the infrastructure to harness artificial intelligence, and another region does not have that access. And the truth is that when that happens, when there's digital inequality, those that are on the good side of digital infrastructure will use it to oppress those who don't have it. So for us to harness the power of artificial intelligence very well, we need to address the issue of access and inclusion and create an equal playing ground for harnessing the benefits or the digital dividends that artificial intelligence brings to us as a people. Then the issue of accountability and transparency. There's difficulty in holding AI systems accountable for decisions because it's still early days, right? Even though artificial intelligence as the word started from 1956, but we are still at that stage where we have limited understanding of who we should hold accountable for any issues that or negative impact of artificial intelligence, either in the wrong use of data or in creating polar divisions amongst the people with artificial intelligence. So we still don't know who we should hold accountable because there's that difficulty, because it's still early days and a lot of us are still exploring and experimenting with the technology. So this is the kind of work that we need to be addressing in digital rights as well. And lastly is human rights, potential misuse of AI for surveillance and human rights abuses, which is a big work that we must all continue to pay attention to. And we must continue to observe how the negative impact of AI is affecting people's digital rights in Africa. So these are some things that we need to pay attention to for digital rights in the domain of AI. So let's speak about the African electoral landscape. And I'm going to talk about these 5 things in the challenges in African electoral landscape currently. Then from this, we're able to talk about how AI is, making this work, addressing these issues, but also the negative effect of AI and the things we need to pay attention to. In the general electoral landscape in Africa, there's the high electoral fraud across the continent. And the issue is the manipulation of vote count and tampering with the electoral process. And I know some of us can relate with this. And then the impact of that is undermining public trust in election results. Across the continent in the last elections that happened before the 2024 year of election and different elections happening in 2024, it's been seen from report and personal work that different organizations have done that people across Africa, a lot of people are frustrated with the outcome of the last elections that happened in their countries because of the number of electoral frauds that happened through manipulation of vote counts and tampering with the electoral process. Also with a lot of voter intimidation and violence, right? Use of threats, violence, coercion to influence voters' behavior as well. And the impact of this also discourages voter participation. When there is a major electoral fraud in the previous election year, it's also noticed that the next election usually experiences low voters turnout because people are frustrated and they will say, we turned out the last election, what happened? We were intimidated, we weren't able to display or exercise our civic rights. Why should I come out to vote this time? Which is very concerning, right? So these are some of the challenges. Another one is the logistical challenges that happen between rural and urban centers, between social statuses, right? We see a lot of logistical challenges there, and also inadequate infrastructure and resources to conduct in elections. We've seen situations where they'll say ballot boxes have not reached a particular location at 2 p.m. on election day, while in some places people have started voting from 7 a.m. Delays, inefficiencies, and potential disenfranchisement of voters, right? These are some of the challenges as well. Corruption, bribery, and corrupting, electorates by electoral officials and candidates is one of the challenges in the African electoral landscape as well. And this brings compromises for the integrity of the electoral process, which, by the way, leads to users, voters' frustration and citizens not trusting the electoral system of their countries. Then digital misinformation. This has been at least consistent in African election in the last decade. How digital channels are being used to drive misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation for electoral information to the electorate, and the use of digital platforms for driving misinformation. It's concerning and alarming. Now, how has AI contributed to some of the, especially on digital misinformation in our electoral landscape in Africa? Deepfakes. And we've seen a lot of examples in recent times, in the last 3 months, on how artificial intelligence generated videos or audio that mimic real politicians, which is leading to spreading false statements about election, or people saying the dumbest things that they cannot say as humans, but they use AI-generated videos to do it, right? So, and this can mislead voters and damage reputations. It is still very obvious that 80% of online netizens or people using online systems cannot differentiate between a deep fake video and a real video. And especially on platforms like, when you go on platforms like Facebook, a lot of people can still not differentiate between deep fakes and real videos. Maybe the literacy for deepfake is a little bit higher on Twitter, maybe because on Twitter as well as a bot that confirms the source of information of videos these days, right? But it is still very concerning that even with big techs, we still have the issues with deepfakes, and artificial intelligence is leading to it, and it's causing a lot of issues. Fake news bots, for example, automated accounts. So there are burner accounts, automated accounts, even on social media, that people follow and they think it's a real human that is behind those accounts, but they are AI generated. And this is also a responsibility of big techs. And you can see a lot of digital advocacy organization calling big techs into accountability to make their platforms safer and better for citizens, so that they are not getting massive disinformation from their platforms. And this influences public opinions and creates confusion. And we've seen this over and over again in a number of African countries where there are properly looking, social media accounts that people follow and they respect what comes out of those accounts. But digging deep down, those accounts are fake accounts generated by artificial intelligence. And they can say all kinds of things that divides the people, and you cannot hold them accountable because they are not real humans, right? But humans are behind it, definitely, but they are using a coverage of fake news bots to be able to drive those agenda. Then there's micro-targeting and false information. Artificial intelligence tools are being used to deliver tailored false messages to specific voter groups. And we all read about the case of Cambridge Analytica and Facebook a while ago, how, there was a situation where the Cambridge Analytica was able to use, people's Facebook data to do micro-targeting for elections all across the world. And what this does is that it gives them specific access to behavioral data and also psychological manipulations for information to specific voters group, either to paint a candidate in a bad light or drive propaganda to discredit a candidate, right? And it manipulates voters' beliefs. This is also the work of artificial intelligence, which is concerning as well. Then the sentiment manipulation. AI-driven sentiment analysis can spread emotionally charged misinformation. You can instruct an AI system to do a sentiment analysis that is emotionally, draining for a particular sect of people, or the kind of information you want to show to some sect of people in the society. And it incites anger or fear, swaying voters' decision. This is also one of the things that artificial intelligence can do as well, and it has done, basically. And then lastly, synthetic tests. AI-generated articles or social media posts that appear authentic, but in the real sense of it, they are machine-generated. It floods the information ecosystem with misleading content. And I was reading a cyber audit report recently that says, and on the face value, don't trust whatever information you have seen online. At least for the first 20 minutes of reading the information, don't trust it yet until you've done your own due diligence. And that tells you that with all the information that is available to us in the current age, there's a lot of high misinformation going on. And we cannot trust things from face value anymore until we do our own due diligence to confirm the sources of those data and information. And this is the impact of AI on misinformation in African elections and globally as well. We've seen this over and over again. Our deepfake has been used, fake news bots, micro-targeting with false information, sentiment manipulation, and also synthetic tests. Now, how do we tailor AI tools to address misinformation? So we can see that AI can do the negative work, but it can also do the positive work if we use it correctly. We can use AI to detect misinformation. As much as AI can be used to drive misinformation, it can also be used to, detect misinformation. So AI can be used to detect patterns of keywords in a text, and we will know whether it's machine generated or human written. So these are some of the ways AI can, address misinformation in African elections. Fact-checking automation. There are so many social justice organizations and media innovation organizations who have come up with a lot of tools for fact-checking. An example of that is Dubawa by CJID, that does fact-checking for information, right? And it's automated to fact-check and cross-referencing of claims in articles. And they have a dedicated page where they will do the analysis of the text and tell you the sources. And they use artificial intelligence to do this. And it's one of the best breakthrough of artificial intelligence for misinformation. Social media monitoring, AI identifying bots and monitoring sentiments exist, and it helps us to sway misinformation. Then image and video verification. There are AI tools now that we can use in detecting fake videos. As much as AI can be used to, it's like you making pencil and eraser at the same time. And that tells you how powerful artificial intelligence is and how we must be more accountable and use it in a positive way. And there are AI tools that can now detect image and videos by verifying whether they are deepfakes or they are originally recorded, right? And you can see that even our mobile phones producers are beginning to do a lot of this naturally on phones and advanced Android phones. Now you can, when you take a picture, you can actually check the time the picture is taken. Or if your location is on, you can check where the light exposure where you took the picture, and it will be different from an AI-generated one. So that's also a way. We've seen situations where people were doing false reports of election violence by using, or 8 years ago, and reporting those pictures. And there are AI, then content moderation, automated tools for removing misinformation. Thankfully, some of the big techs with social media are doing that now, where they're able to remove, misinformation or information that are inciting violence or division amongst the people. But a lot of work still needs to be done to ensure that we continue to do that work on a larger scale. Public awareness and education, you can do personalized alert and educational campaigns with artificial intelligence on different platforms and digital platforms especially. Network analysis, AI can help us do network analysis of misinformation and also give us some information on penetration testing, where some of this bad information or malicious information is coming from. AI has been able to do that successfully as well. Then lastly, collaborative efforts. We can form a partnership of fact checkers with AI tool, and then we can fact check from South Africa to Nigeria to Rwanda to Kenya to Somalia, and we're able to come up with, absolute truth about a particular information with the use of AI. So it has advantages, it has disadvantages, and it's our responsibility to, use it to our own advantage while advocating for ethical use of artificial intelligence for elections. So in terms of ethical implications of using AI to combat misinformation, while we are using AI to combat misinformation, we must pay attention to these things. Number one, the privacy concerns, data collection and surveillance implications. We must be paying attention to that. How the data that is being fed into our AI while we are combating misinformation, how that data is collected is important. We must not collect data that implicates people. We must also pay attention to anonymizing data and surveillance implication as well. We want to solve a problem, but we'll be creating another problem or even committing a lot of digital blunders if we don't pay attention to privacy as we are using AI to combat misinformation in election. Biases and fairness, we must pay attention to it. Risk of algorithmic biases and ensuring fair representation. If we are doing regional, incidence response during election with AI, we must have equal representation. It's not good for us to you have 38 districts, but on the AI system you are using to combat misinformation in election, you only have 32 districts. That is already unfair, and that is already dropping out a particular region. So we must pay attention to that as well. Transparency and accountability. We must address the challenges of understanding AI decisions and determining responsibility, right? Whatever we are doing, we must be transparent, and we must ensure that we are communicating that transparent information to the last mile, which is, in this case, the citizens, for them to, have full access to how we are using AI to combat misinformation. If we have an help desk that is based on AI during election, people should be able to follow what the AI is doing in real time from their dashboard. Freedom of expression. When we are using AI to combat misinformation in election, it must not stifle people's voices. So risk of censorship and balancing removal of misinformation with free speech. We must have standard on the types of misinformation that we are going to be removing on all kinds of systems that we are using to combat misinformation in an election. And it must be a co-created standard by the citizens of the country where we are operating. Trust and legitimacy, potential erosion of public trust, and impact of that on election legitimacy. We must be conscious that whatever we are doing, we ensure that it builds trust and it leads to legitimacy of the election. If we are using AI to aggregate election data and we are summarizing it to the populace, we must ensure that we are picking the right set of data and it leads to election legitimacy, right? We must not report what is wrong while we're using AI. Very, very important. And the last question one important question we must ask ourselves is, what is the impact of use of AI on democracy, especially in that election? So ensuring AI supports informed decision-making without undue influence, right? And legal and regulatory issues. We must pay attention to, privacy, people's data, and their human rights. And this sets limits to the type of data that we are collecting and the kind of reporting that we are doing when we're using artificial intelligence in combating misinformation in election. So thank you very much. I believe I've been able to touch on important points that we must pay attention to, and a lot of information on what we must do to stay safe while using AI for elections. But also, I've been able to show us the pros and cons of artificial intelligence as much as it supports elections to be more accountable, to engage our civic spectrums very well. I've also been able to show us how dangerous it can be and our responsibilities as professionals in ensuring that we are ethical in the application of AI to combating misinformation in election. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Oluwaseun. I think that was a really comprehensive presentation, and you also highlighted how we can use AI to be able to address some of the challenges that AI can lead to, which is also useful. At this point, I'd like to hand over to Yvonne, when if you could take us through your presentation and your reflections. And then thereafter, we'll have a short question and answer series. If anybody wants to ask any more questions, please feel free to use the chat, and you can also interact amongst yourselves. We'd like to keep the session engaging and interactive. So over to you, Yvonne.
Hi, Yasmin. So Show has done the presentation in full. So that's the full presentation.
Okay,
we have.
that's fine. Would you like to add any comments or closing reflections?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I think that I would just like to highlight some of the things that Sheung has spoken about, especially as it relates to our work at the Civic Tech Innovation Network West Africa, and also following the white paper that we released sometimes in December 2023, showing how the civic tech innovation landscape is in Africa and also in West Africa. We have seen that there are so many biases as a result of how these AI tools are being modeled or designed. And it is important that as Africans, we amplify our voices. We also be part of designing and developing these AI tools to be able to fit into the African context. We need to take data protection very seriously across all spectrum, especially during elections. We have seen people getting unsolicited messages as a result of how their data has been used in public spaces. And we also need to ensure that our voices generally are amplified on these issues, such that we are not just speaking, we are seeing actions being taken towards improving how AI tools are being deployed in elections to build citizens' confidence. Because as part of what we have seen as a positive influence of AI is the fact that AI has been very instrumental in voters' registration process all across the world and in Africa in particular. But we need to move from just registration to how we can build confidence in the use of AI for election integrity in terms of the outcomes of election. When people go to the polls to cast their votes, they are sure that it's the reflection of their vote that they are getting back as the outcomes of the election, rather than us seeing human factors coming in trying to manipulate these AI tools for the benefits of whoever their preferred candidate is. So that's a big issue as it comes to election. And we hope that election management bodies in Africa are able to take up these concerns to ensure that we have improved elections in Africa, especially in this very important year of elections. I would like to stop here so we can go to the question and answer session. Over to you, Yasmin. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Yvonne. So we got one question about AI and how can we use AI to minimize surveillance and the other use of digital tools by government in the context of freedom of speech during elections?
It's a very complex question, I must say, because that question is in the spectrum of a lot of cybersecurity spectrum. But, when we look at, how, even the governments use humans or citizens' data sometimes, because in every country, the government is the most powerful. Sometimes you don't have control on the agreement of what they've used the data to do. But what we usually advise is the spectrum on how to advise citizens to stay safe, first of all, their own personal responsibility, right? And this speaks to how some of us use even our devices irresponsibly, right? Many of us don't pay attention to even our activities online, sometimes. And I believe also every one of us must become security conscious in so many ways, especially if you work in digital advocacy, or you're a media professional, or you work in, human rights, emancipation, and all those kind of work, or you work in social justice. Your voice is loud in terms of, speaking for the right of people, or speaking for digital rights, which means you are also a target, and you must be conscious of how your digital footprint exists online as well. So we've seen situations where people use, a lot of, innovative VPNs to stay safe online. People, as organizations, they invest in good firewalls, and they also relate very well, have close working relationship with incident response teams. We personally have an incident response desk where you can, come and we can support if you notice some cyber threats on your technology stack or infrastructure. So that question is a question that we are supposed to have government seated in the room, and have, social justice organizations, media organizations, and also electoral bodies in the room to have that conversation. But to answer summarily, I think we must first of all pay attention to our own personal digital safety online as it relates to the kind of work that we do. Because at the end of the day, AI uses big data, and you cannot sometimes have influence on what government wants to use the data to do sometimes. But it's our responsibility to advocate for ethical application of our data. And it also baffles me sometimes how the same biometric system we did for, verification we did for elections previous year is gone. We need to do those verifications again. New data is being collected every day. And how some telecoms in most part of Africa will always ask us to come back and drop data. And there was a time where a particular telecoms in Nigeria said the previous data they collected for SIM registration, they lost it. And people should come and re-register. Where did the data go? Did we know who had access to that data? And the communication didn't go beyond that. And the country did not hold the telecom company accountable to say who hacked did you do any research on who hacked the system? Where did the data go? What were the things you didn't do right for the data to be leaked, So these are conversations that the three spectrums of let me call it the triple helix, needs to be in the room, and then we need to have that conversation. Thank you.
Thanks. I think, like, speaking on the concept of getting the right people in the room, you spoke to some like partnership building in AI. So what would your ideal benefit, your ideal scenario be of which types of people could work to create context-specific AI governance in a context like Nigeria or any other part of Africa?
Thank you so much. I think if you look at some of the best collectives or AI, innovation coming out, some of those things were built as a collaboration rather than competition, right? And I'm glad you mentioned Nigeria. The approach Nigeria, for example, is taking to build AI solutions for the country, but also to create opportunity for people to benefit from AI and understand academia people doing active research on AI solutions. And the truth is that if we must, build a correct AI governance, we also need to bring people in language into the room. So we need all spectrums of people. When we talk about AI, we don't talk about people who are linguistic scholars, because one of the best things to do in AI is also data labeling, right? And if we say a particular AI system is not language specific, it's because we have not brought in the linguistic professionals to do semantic labeling of contextual strings of sentences, of words in AI system, especially in generative AI. So we need the government, we need the academia, we need the language experts. We cannot escape it if we are going to build specific contextual nuanced AI governance pool. We need to bring all these people in the room. And sometimes we usually don't think about behavioral scientists when it comes to AI, right? Because if we talk about AI and its application to driving propaganda and agenda for division or biases in elections, we need psychologists to be in the room and behavioral scientists to be in the room. But the limitation of the current governance system across different countries in Africa is that when we talk about AI, we only bring technologists into the room. We only bring machine learning engineers into the room. And those ones will only give us the excitement part of the technology, not the ethical and contextual application side of it. So it's a big spectrum, and I think everybody has a role to play. The number of steps of stakeholders that need to be in the room for proper AI governance, for it to be applicable in a proper way and contextual.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with that. And then also about like digital accessibility and capacity building around AI in rural areas versus urban areas. How best, we have a question in the chat, how best can we domesticate AI in rural communities where digital infrastructure is already deficient? And also there'd be a skills gap there.
Yes, very good question. I think AI as an innovation has a pull and push approach, right? For the rural areas where we don't have strong infrastructure, we don't even have digital infrastructures at all. That tells us the kind of artificial intelligence systems that we should apply, especially when it comes to things like election in those areas. Artificial intelligence can capture data of people in rural areas, and it gives them equal playing ground with the kind of system we have built with their data for election. But when it comes to some other spectrums of artificial intelligence in terms of digital channels access, it's something that has to be done from the digital literacy and infrastructural investment side of things. But we cannot wait for digital infrastructure to be completely in place 100% before we start building AI systems in Africa. If we do that, we are going to be left behind because the ecosystem is evolving very fast. So it's a type of pull and push. In terms of push, we push for the kind of AI system that can make use of the data of people in rural area and give us equal products that we can use in elections or public service delivery of some specific services. And the pull side of it is advocacy for continuous investment in digital infrastructure and channels that helps rural areas to have a level playing ground in also contributing immensely to AI systems. But in terms of push for data or pool of data, we can still, and it's being used in we have some specific examples of how we can collect data from people in urban and rural areas feed that data into a system that gives them equal opportunity when election time comes. But in terms of being able to contribute immensely and have more innovative approaches to bringing novel ideas on AI from rural areas, I agree that we need to do more work in digital literacy, first of all, but also digital infrastructure investment.
Yes, that's a very good point. Are there any more questions or comments? I think we have come to the end of the session, but I would just like to thank both of us.
I think there's a question. There's a last question. I dropped a question. Yeah.
How can we enhance digital literacy of AI in Africa, given the lack of internet connectivity and also the disparity? Like some countries and some regions have a higher access to bandwidth and data, and also data costs. I'd like to add that's also a restrictive factor.
I think my last response addressed some of a part of this question. But in terms of digital literacy of AI in Africa, I think the fact that AI is a technology that rides on big data and requires high computing power, makes use of very complex neural network algorithm. People first of all need to understand on a basic level what AI is. And now, in terms of the products that we develop out of AI, we need to make it contextual in such a way that people can use it, right? The technology itself is complex. We will now be doing ourselves a disservice when the product coming out of AI is even more complex to use. And that is why if we're able to build ethically and culturally contextual, AI products, people who seems not to even have, high digital literacy, or in places where digital infrastructure is limited, they can still use it. But there's also a lot of experimentation going on how AI systems can be probed from an offline channel. But because AI picks a lot of data from, it's big data, it picks data from every cloud storage system and aggregates. We've not had a lot of success in making maybe low internet or low bandwidth AI system. But I think these conversations we're having is important so that we know if we are innovating with the technology, we know what we are paying attention to. We know the evolution that needs to happen, and we know how best to innovate with the technology to become better. And that's why I said at the very beginning, every new technology will go through the stages of hype, hope, and truth. And I think with artificial intelligence, we are still at that. We are transitioning from hype to hope, where we are now building solid use cases and paying attention to contextual use of it and what we need to do to make it more equitable, and then we can get to that advanced use of it.
I also think that with the emergence of AI and the way that it's growing so quickly around the world, that governments really need to be prepared. And that's where the other puzzle can fit in, so that governments need to make sure that all citizens have an equal access to digital infrastructure, and that people are not left behind in that digital literacy space. So I think we have had a wonderful discussion today, and I really appreciate both the time and effort that went into your presentation, and also the way you really explained in detail how AI is being applied in the context of governance and elections in Africa, and all the examples of how we can build upon what we're seeing. So I really like to take the time to thank you both for being here today. And CTIN is also planning to host a few more of these workshops and masterclasses throughout the year. So please keep checking our website and follow us. We are Civic Tech Africa on LinkedIn and on X and Facebook. Thank you very much.